I want to talk about Anthony Jenkins, his plans, his vision for the future at Barclays, a new ethical future. We're joined now from New York by former Wall Street banker William Cohen, who's the author of Money and Power, How Goldman Sachs Came to Rule the World. Here in the Gherkin, Professor Chris Roebuck, who's an expert in transformational leadership, Chris, here in the City of London. Let's start with that, because transformational leadership is exactly what Anthony Jenkins is wanting to affect. He's saying, Mr. Roebuck, that you cannot succeed without integrity. Surely, though, Barclays is living proof that you can. It's behaved appallingly over the last few years, and it's still in business.
The bank is still in business, but we have to remember, you make the comment about Barclays has behaved without integrity. If you look at Barclays, if you look at most organisations, the vast majority of people in those organisations throughout their career do behave with integrity, and they do seek to give the best service to their clients. And that applies to 99% of people in banking and in any other industry. It's just that there is always a small group of people who break the rules for their own profit, and that's what's been happening. And Barclays needs to get back to the point at which everybody in the organisation is sticking to the rules, not just 99%.
OK, William Cohen, you are a former investment banker. I don't think you ever worked at Barclays, but clearly you know something about the way in which they and others do business. The rules have changed, says the boss. Sign up or ship out. Do you expect to see a queue of people leaving the bank?
Not voluntarily, that's for sure. Nobody leaves a Wall Street job voluntarily, despite what they say about wanting to spend more time with their family, et cetera, at the end of their careers. The fact is, it's good business for Anthony Jenkins to say this. The stock is up, tremendously since he took over Barclays. But, this is the kind of thing that people have been saying on Wall Street for decades, for generations. I mean, when I worked at Merrill Lynch, 20 years ago, there was embossed in the marble footings of the building these great statements about integrity and honor and trust and all of that. And yet, we all know in 2006 and 2007 and 2008, Merrill Lynch was churning out CDOs and CDO squareds that later went kaput and got us into the financial crisis like everybody else. So it's one thing to talk about integrity and to instill it in an organization, and it's very different to try to instill it in an organization. It's very difficult.
OK, William Cohen, clearly sceptical, Chris Roebuck. You've read the memo. Are you inspired? Are you convinced?
Right, as William says, it's a step in the right direction, but those words were on the walls of every single international bank prior to the crisis. It's not about what the chief executive says, it's what your boss does in front of you day to day. We know in terms of influencing people's behaviour, what the chief executive does has an effect of about 2%. What your boss does in front of you is about 80%. And if your boss is a devil, even if the chief executive is a saint, you're going to be a devil.
OK. The scale of the operation, what's he got to do here, William Cohen? How unethical had Barclays become? What's the scale of the change that's needed?
Well, look, I don't really think Barclays has done anything that's any worse than any other Wall Street firm. I mean, look at the FSA's report on UBS and the LIBOR scandal. In fact, that was far worse than anything that I saw in any report about Barclays' behavior during the LIBOR scandal. So, again, I just feel this is very widespread. Yes, Barclays was in the crosshairs. Bob Diamond had to resign, which I think, in retrospect, might be a little unfair considering that the rest of the CEOs on Wall Street whose firms had all this terrible behavior still have their jobs. I mean, Jamie Dimon, who presided over J.P. Morgan Chase in a $6.2 billion trading loss, he still has his job. Why Bob Diamond lost his, I'm not exactly sure. Doesn't seem to make sense. But the fact of the matter is ethics on Wall Street all over needs to be improved tremendously if any kind of confidence that people once had in these businesses is going to be improved.
Can you teach ethics, Chris Roebuck? I mean, once an investment banker is trained, honed to sniff out profits, teaching them to hug their customers, it doesn't. Is that a U-turn they're going to be able to perform?
I think what we have to remember that banks are not homogenous, so therefore you've got a lot of people that deal with one-to-one with real people, and those are relationship bankers, and they will stick to integrity because they believe in their clients. But at the other end, in certain parts of the investment bank, you've got people who deal with other banks, and the attitude is, if we don't get them before they get us, we're going to lose money. But you can set the rules. The problem is, If somebody steps over the line, everybody else and their boss has to say, you've gone over the line, come back. If they get away with it or they make money from going over that line, everybody else joins them. And that's what happened in LIBOR.
Oh, that's what's interesting here, though, because in terms of making money, what Anthony Jenkins is saying, William Cohen, is that bonuses henceforth will be paid according to how much money you make, sure, but also performance against key values, respect, integrity, service. Can you does that float for you as an idea? Are those things you can meaningfully measure in terms of performance?
Well, it's a tough thing to measure. Again, you know, at Merrill Lynch, we had those same words tattooed to the marble footings of the building. But on the other hand, it is an important ideal to strive for. And the key is, as the professor was pointing out, the key is you cannot have a peer who behaves badly be promoted and paid, because that sends the wrong message to the organization. If you really want to affect change down in the trenches, you have to penalize people for their bad behavior. And that's the kind of thing that Anthony Jenkins can really set a tone from at the top. And if he does that, he will change Barclays' culture.
OK, William Cohen, live for us in New York. Chris Roebuck, who is the professor at the City of London. Thank you very much for joining us to discuss that.